Thankfully, in my area, I don't often run across people who don't think these products or these innovative treatments are worth it. I think that in healthcare, we all see patients suffering. We all see unmet needs every day. We all want more treatment options, better treatment options, more effective treatment options for patients who are suffering. So the clinical benefit is 100% I think unquestioned. However, how do you balance that with the one-time upfront cost that we're facing with these treatments? So I think that's the most important thing to really consider is these patients are high cost patients regardless. If you think about, one of my easiest examples is a hemophilia patient. Hemophilia patients are required to receive infusions or injections of factor on a extremely regular basis. And it's a very difficult condition to live with. These people are tough. They learn to live with it. They learn to deal with it, but it's extremely expensive. The medication that is needed for them to treat their medication or prevent bleeds in their during their treatment or their condition, they require extremely expensive treatments every single month or very often throughout their life. Not only the pharmaceutical treatments and the high cost of those treatments contribute to the total cost of the disease, but also when they have a episode or a bleed or a type of episode that leads them to need a hospitalization or an emergency room visit, those are extremely expensive too. So I think, when you look at a medication that is possibly a one-time, dose for a hemophilia A patient, and that one-time dose is going to be extremely expensive in the beginning, in the millions of dollars range. However, it's going to have multiple cost offsets in the long term. I think that's the really important thing that you need to look at. And in the healthcare industry, we look towards pharmacoeconomic modeling for some of these valuations. Health economics and outcomes research is an area that is extremely important here to help people understand the long-term, short-term, and even the quality of life value of any particular treatment. So when we look at things from that pharmacoeconomic point of view, kind of take our emotions out of it, take the timing of any particular cost out of it, and just think about what is the total cost of care for that patient today, what is the cost of care with the new treatment, and then comparing those. Do we have a value? Do we have a value story there? And most often we do indeed have a value story, and the total cost of care for the patient with the treatment versus without is actually a positive value to the overall health care of that patient. So I think that's what we try to evaluate very objectively when we look at the cost of these treatments is really more than the cost now, because yes, we all struggle with this is a big cost now, and U.S. healthcare data shows that patients don't stay with insurance companies for longer than 2 or 3 years. So if you're an insurer, do you want to pay that upfront cost now? It's a really challenging question. But when we do look at the pharmacoeconomics, ICER is an organization that does a really nice job of evaluating pharmacoeconomic data and showing the value from a more scientific and financial perspective of these products. And, that's a great organization to think about. And we try to think about things that way too. I was looking at it at really that cost effectiveness, cost analysis when it applies to the total cost of care for the patient. I think we're hearing a lot about that. These innovative payment models or outcomes-based contracts have been in existence for a number of years. They are getting a lot of attention and a lot more refreshed buzz now, I think, with these extremely high-cost treatments. But there are a number of different models, and I find these extremely interesting and very valuable when we're talking about treatments in the $3.5 million range at the highest point. So a few examples of those are, we've talked a lot about outcomes-based contracts in the industry. These contracts are typically arranged between a pharmaceutical company and either a healthcare provider or a payer or insurer. They're often considered risk sharing, and they involve the delivery of a specific outcome in order for the pharma company to receive full payment. So there could be a discount, a rebate, or a refund if the treatment does not deliver the agreed upon outcome. And any outcome that is contracted for in one of these outcomes-based types of agreements has to be a labeled indication that is approved by the FDA for the product in question. So these are probably the most common types of contracts that are occurring currently. There's a really good example of CMS working through one of these contracts currently with the sickle cell products as part of some government action that I'll talk about in just a moment. But these types of agreements are, I would say, extremely common in the specialty world or the cell and gene world. Nothing is incredibly common, but they're definitely talked about more often than most of the other types of payment programs that I'll discuss. A second type of thing that is being discussed is annuity payment programs. So this involves kind of a third party, or an example of this could be where a third party would manage payment of a treatment over a duration of time for that specific product or patient. These payment arrangements can exist between a pharma company or an organization specifically designed to manage financials between pharma companies and payers. And this allows the payment to be spread over time so that if the patient does indeed transition from payer to payer or state to state in the case of Medicaid, then those payments can be made over time versus at a single point in time. Warranty programs are another type of program that's being discussed, and there are a lot of variations for warranty programs, but essentially what these are is almost a guarantee of an outcome. So a warranty for your treatment or your care. There's also a interesting emergence of supply guarantee contracts. These I don't consider, clinical outcomes contracts, but they're emerging due to the supply challenges with some of these products that take, a decent amount of time to manufacture. So I have seen supply guarantee contracts coming to light in this space as well, where a manufacturer might guarantee a certain supply for a particular product during a certain period of time. There are a number of other innovative payment models that are definitely being discussed, and I think that it's the time for innovation. Payers are interested, providers are interested, and pharma manufacturers are interested in kind of changing the course of how we pay for these treatments and high cost treatments in general. I also want to highlight that just on January 30th, the Biden-Harris administration announced that sickle cell disease will be the first focus of the cell and gene therapy access model, which I'm really excited to see coming to fruition. That was announced, the plan to do a project like this was announced in February of 2023. And I think this is a really interesting and significant initiative because it shows that the government truly does support these therapies coming to market, being commercialized, and making them accessible to patients. So it was designed to improve health outcomes, increase access to cell and gene therapy, and lower healthcare costs for some of the nation's most vulnerable populations. And clearly, sickle cell disease is a perfect example of an underserved community of patients who desperately need access to care. That cell and gene therapy access model is part of the administration's effort to further drive down prescription drug costs. It was developed in response to an executive order that Biden issued in 2022, directing the Department of Health and Human Services to consider developing models that could decrease the overall cost of treatment with medications in the U.S. So I think this is a really exciting time. Just a little bit of background on the two products that will be kind of subject to this model. Two products were approved in December of 2023, just a very short time ago. Casgevy is the CRISPR Vertex one that there's definitely a lot of talk about. It's a brand new mechanism of action, very cool science, gene editing, very specific to a certain type of sickle cell disease, and just really cool technology and innovation. And then Lyfgenia from Bluebird also has a product that was approved with a completely different mechanism of action and even a slightly different indication, but again, will target those patients with sickle cell disease and will be part of this project with CMS. So just a little bit more information on those two products because there is so much talk about them. Casgevy is priced at $2.2 million for one dose, where Lyfgenia is priced at $3.1 million. So there has been a little bit of controversy around the difference in pricing for the same population of about 100,000 patients in the US with this condition. So speaking of the innovative contracting, outcomes-based contracting, Bluebird did almost immediately announce that they had an outcomes-based contract with a payer group or a payer system to cover 100 million patient lives. Since then, they have added an additional 200 million lives under contract that is publicly, has been publicly announced. So they're being very innovative in working with payers of all kinds to ensure that their product will be affordable for patients, which I think is great. Vertex is doing the same, or maybe not the same, but a similar thing where they have 100 million lives covered in a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield Synergy Medication Collective. So they've made that announcement public. So I think that's really both of these companies' initiatives and efforts in this space speak to the fact that they do want to make these products more affordable for the healthcare system and for patients. And not only that, but these agreements are based on outcomes. Lyfgenia's Bluebird has announced what their contract actually involves in some cases, and it's a 3-year endpoint or a 3-year outcome evaluation. So I think that is very bold and very, that will be well respected in healthcare because of the fact that they are kind of putting their money where their mouth is. So I think it's a good thing, and I think it'll be a trend that others will certainly follow. Other types of things that might help the situation as far as costs go, I think we've discussed a lot of that, but I think access is equally important here too. And when I think about that, the healthcare providers play such a huge role in creating access for patients. So some of the things that, I think could improve or that we need to continue to push for is genetic testing, earlier genetic testing, coverage of genetic testing, much more broadly than maybe has been kind of standard of care to date. With these treatments becoming more and more available, identifying genetic conditions or mutations earlier will allow patients to be able to be candidates potentially for clinical trials if a drug should emerge in that particular area of genetic targeting. So I think there's a huge opportunity there to just improve what healthcare providers, what resources healthcare providers are giving to patients to better understand their condition and the treatment options. The second thing on the provider side would be treatment center expansion. So right now, cell and gene therapy manufacturers select their treatment centers, which is completely reasonable for now. They want to ensure that their treatment centers are highly sophisticated clinically and financially to ensure the best care for patients that are candidates for their product, which again makes complete sense for now. However, if we think about some of these larger populations being served with some of the current products, as well as pipeline products, we've got to think much broader. When we look at the pipeline, we're looking at, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, some epilepsy treatments, for example, much larger diabetes treatments, much larger populations. We cannot expect patients to relocate to a city where there's a treatment center for an extended period of time. So so much more broadly than we're doing today with these treatments. So I think treatment center expansion needs to occur. We need to help community providers learn how to administer these products, manage the adverse events that come along with some of these products, prepare patients for treatment. Right now, again, most of these treatment centers are in metro centers, academic centers of excellence for certain disease types, and they're sometimes extremely difficult for patients to get to. And then finally, I think clinical trial diversity being promoted is extremely important. We've got to get more diversity in clinical trials, and I know this is a significant effort globally, and I think we're making progress here. But clinical trial diversity has to occur so that we really can have a good understanding of how these products affect different types of patients, different populations of people, and how those outcomes look more broadly. So I think that's really important as well. And then the final thing I will say is advocacy group involvement. Advocacy groups are extremely important for patients to feel supported. Because these are such rare diseases, it's difficult for them to find support or find someone else who understands what they're going through, and for their caregivers to seek the same types of support. So I think advocacy groups are really important here as well. And we mentioned a little bit of their connection sometimes with that financial supporting arm too, which can be really critical for these patients if they do seek a cell and gene therapy treatment. They are doing that. They're absolutely trying extremely hard to make these products more affordable, to manufacture them more efficiently, and to reduce the total cost, not only for their manufacturing, but also obviously the total cost for the patient and the healthcare system. So, I think that right now where we are with these treatments, many of them are being manufactured with one patient cells for one patient in one lab in the country, and then shipped to that patient for administration. That is not a low-cost process on the manufacturer side. So obviously, a lot of that cost is passed on to the healthcare system. So I think there are a few things going on in manufacturing to improve efficiencies in that process. Some of those, again, and I'm still referring to kind of the small volume products, so some of the small volume products that we have on the market today. Some manufacturing efficiencies that I'm hearing about are decentralized manufacturing, so creating more small spaces where manufacturing can occur that are closer to the location of the patient or the infusion site. Secondly, automation in the processes. So many of these processes are being done manually currently. They're, again, one by one dose being made for one patient at a time, automating those processes. And then finally, efficiencies in making multiple doses at the same time. So there is some really cool technology out there that allows, products to be manufactured at the same time in a more automated way, so that it is not, actual human creating, making the medication themselves or spinning those cells down themselves, but it's kind of happening in a automated way in new technology solutions for that. So outside of kind of that, N equals 1 type of scenario with some of these products are like a bigger picture kind of future state, I would say. If you think about some of the allogeneic cell therapy products and some of the gene products that do not require a patient's cells, but may require a donor cells or other types of cells to be used for the starting material, I think that this is kind of where the future lies. And these are really technology improvements where we're looking at platform gene technologies where you can create more than one product from a gene editing platform, for example. And then again, allogeneic cell therapies. I've heard many times manufacturers stating that one donor can create up to 100 doses of a cell therapy versus one dose of a cell therapy. And that could potentially reduce costs down to a range of $10,000 per dose I've heard quoted. I think that's the lowest that I've heard quoted. I think we would all love to see that day. It seems like a dream now, but again, these drugs all seem like a dream 5 years ago. So I do think we'll get there. And I know manufacturers are doing their part to help us get there. I think the only thing that maybe we didn't cover is investment in this innovation. Continued investment is an area that we really need to keep a close eye on in cell and gene therapy. 2022 and 2023 were a little bit challenging for innovative cell and gene therapy companies. Capital investments slowed down a bit. It's really important for us to understand kind of the ups and downs of the regulatory system that we live within, and really believe that the FDA is doing everything they can to help bring these products to market. And CMS is obviously participating. We have so much support in this country and globally for these products to be successful. So I guess I would just say investment needs to continue, support needs to continue, and we really just need to continue to focus on getting these better outcomes to patients who really need and deserve them. So I do believe the future is extremely bright and so many opportunities for us to see amazing things in the future.